Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I rise to contribute on behalf of the Greens to the Plastics Reduction and Circular Economy Bill 2021. It is a bit of Groundhog Day, and I did hear the pleas of Labor. I also want to put on the record, remind everyone that Ian Cohen, MLC, in 2009, in the Greens, introduced a banned single-use plastic bag bill in the upper house, which was not supported. 2016, I introduced one in this place, and in 2021, our current plastic spokesperson, Kate Fairman, has introduced a ban the bag bill. And Labor have introduced those bills, and, you know, unfortunately the Libs and Nats have had to be dragged kicking and screaming. However, this bill does take significant steps to prohibit problematic single-use plastic waste and establish a circular economy in New South Wales. And I do recall last year or the year before talking to the then Environment Minister about circular economies, and certainly to see those words in this legislation is very, very welcome. However, the bill does fail to set a timeline, and we know that is a bit of a problem with the Liberals and Nationals in this state, and certainly federally at the moment, in addressing real environmental crises. A timeline tells communities that you are deadly serious. And we also, it fails to recognise some of the more insipid particles of plastic or products with plastic that are really affecting the environment. And so, Mr Speaker, we will be making those amendments in the other place to strengthen this bill. But before I forget, I do want to give a shout out to some of the incredible community organisations in my electorate of Ballina, Plastic Free Byron, Mullum Cares, Tarrangoa Blue, Byron Council, Plastic Free Boy, who's an amazing kid, Positive Change for Marine Life, and Plastic Free Mermaid, just to name a few, because in our area, I would argue that we have some of the strongest environmental activists when it comes to plastic. I know people who every year, ecologists who, instead of having an annual holiday, they go up to the northern parts of Australia and go out to that incredible sea of plastic and collect plastic. And certainly, having visited several countries in the Pacific Islands, when you see the mass of our plastic waste, it is just absolutely devastating. I'm not going to belabour what we've said so many times here, but I do think it's worth noting that in terms of fossil fuels and reducing our emissions, which you would have to argue at the moment is the most pressing international conversation that is happening in Glasgow right now, is that 95% of the nearly 3 million tonnes of plastic that Australia produces each year falls into the category of emissions creation. It doesn't even capture, of course, the environmental impacts that 1,000 years of landfill, and then how much is going into the ocean. If current rates of production and consumption continue, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than fish by 2050. The worst part for me is the nanoparticles, and I was glad to hear that raised. Just one thing alone that this government could do is subsidise those goddamn filters for every single washing machine in this state. That immediately would reduce the amount of plastic that's going into the ocean. So we want to see those actual triggers, levers, however you want to call it, because plastic's not only fueling climate change, but it is actually something that we are ingesting. And 100,000 marine mammals such as whales, dolphins and seals are ingesting and dying each year as a result of plastic pollution. And as a long-term ocean swimmer, when I see the turtles and the impacts on birds and turtles of the plastics, it makes you want to vomit. And that's just, who cares? I'm watching, I'm not dying from it. But that is just something that we are seeing increasingly, let alone the petrochemicals that we're all ingesting. We know that WWF, World Wildlife Fund, have estimated that humans ingest 5 grams of plastic per week. 5 grams, that's the equivalent to a weight of a credit card. And instead of waiting, it's absolutely crucial that we look to phasing out single-use plastics, and the Greens have been pushing for action on this for decades, which is why we want to strengthen this bill and ask for a roadmap. We also disagree that the fact that this bill allows for product stewardship, that this government's intending to exempt members of the Australian Packaging Covenant organisation from many of the product stewardship requirements. That's simply not necessary. And in many ways, business and industry have led the way, as they are doing in terms of reducing emissions more broadly. And so the idea that you need to give a free kick to that industry is false, and we want to see that changed. We appreciate that and recognise that it's a good reform to allow a framework to ensure people with a disability or other medical requirement can request a single straw at hospitality venues when required. Before straws are phased out, the exemptions will be published and a comprehensive business education and engagement campaign will be implemented. We welcome that. What we want to see, and what we will bring amendments with regard in the other House, is to include prohibitions for a greater range of single-use plastics, including the nanoplastics. We want to include a design requirement to ensure washing machines have microplastic filters by 2024, and we want to ensure that the Australian Packaging Covenant organisation cannot be exempt from product stewardship schemes. And Mr Speaker, in terms of time comparisons, because unlike those opposite, we're quite capable of putting together a timetable, and we think you are quite capable of putting in a timetable. Our bill, the Greens bill, saw within 3 months of ratification single-use plastic bags and microbeads gone. The government bill is really only addressing lightweight plastic bags, and it is and with a 6-month time frame. We want to see phased out in 6 months everything from plastic drinking straws right through a whole raft of plastic products. The government's given themselves a year and a half for something similar but not as good. We want to phase out in 18 months, and it's not even recognised in this bill, all other polystyrene packaging, non-compostable cigarette butts, polystyrene construction pods, and plastic takeaway food containers. We want to see that by the end of 2024 that all new washing machines are fitted with a lint filter that is capable of trapping microplastics and microfibres that are loosened during the laundering of synthetic fabrics. And that is an opportunity for manufacturers right there, because we know that most people are interested in preserving the environment. We know that they care about our oceans and that they want to spend their money as conscious consumers. We also want to add a design standard to ensure that by the end of 2024, we also want to ensure that in addition, balloons containing plastic ring carriers for beverage containers, reusable plastic bags, plastic takeaway sauce containers, plastic fruit and vegetable packaging, and on, because we know that this is a war, and it's a war on plastic, but it's also we're against the clock when it comes to reducing our emissions and also the extinction of species. That's what's at stake here, and we don't think that we need a softly approach to this, to embracing a circular economy and understanding that at the end of that loop, if you like, humans are not going very well, and unless we see radical and fast action on all levels, we will continue to see hundreds of thousands of sea creatures harmed and killed each year. We will continue to unpack the health risks of ingesting 5 grams of plastic a week, and we will continue to see emissions rise. And this is literally low-hanging fruit, and I really encourage the government to take on board our amendments in the other place and to get serious. And I've seen in the new behaviour of the now Treasurer, I've seen some good signs. Let's see more of that. Thank you.
I thank the member for Ballina. The question is